Hey 5th grade class, today we are going to go over homographs. Now a homograph, you may have a pretty firm grasp on what a homograph is, but today we're going to be looking at a couple of tips and tricks on how to identify a homograph and the definition of that particular word. And we're really just going to reinforce this lesson today very quickly. You will need pages 11 and 12 of your iReady packet. You should already have your iReady packet at home. This is what page 11 looks like. And this is page 12. So get those 2 pages out. That's what we're going to be using today for our lesson. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at the definition of homograph. So look on page 11 with me, and you can read with me at home where it says introduction. Homograph, read with me. A homograph is a word that has the same spelling but different meanings. So sometimes homographs have different pronunciations from one another. So it gives us an example. The example is the word W-I-N-D. Now the reason why I spelled that instead of pronouncing it is because there's 2 pronunciations of the word W-I-N-D. Can you think of it? Think for just a second. Can you think of 2? The first one that comes to my mind is wind, like the wind blowing. But you can also say wind. And what would that definition be? That would be like winding a toy or winding a clock, or maybe the winding path. So kind of crooked, going in loop-de-loops. It gives us a couple of sentences, so read along with me. A brisk wind blew, so I buttoned my coat. Then I began to wind my way down the hill to the village. Both spell W-I-N-D, but they have very different meanings. So you can use a dictionary to check the meanings and the pronunciation of homographs. That's one of our tricks. That's what we're going to look at and practice doing today. Now, raise your hand at home if you've ever used a dictionary. Everybody's hand should be raised because we're 5th graders, and by now we have used a dictionary or we've used Google. Make sure that you have a parent's permission or somebody watching, but you can search for the definitions of these words. And using the dictionary can be very helpful because if you search for the word wind or wind, W-I-N-D, in your dictionary, you may not know the pronunciation, you may not know the definition of the word in the sentence, but look at your introduction and it gives you an example of what it might look like in a dictionary. So look at the introduction really quick. You see how there's wind and there's wind, but there's that little number. There's a number 1 and a number 2. Now read to yourself in that introduction what those numbers mean. Really quick. It says each homograph has a raised number after the entry word. So that number tells us, hey, this word may be pronounced differently. This word may have a different meaning. Number 1 says moving air, breath, or breathing. And it's pronounced wind. Now the one that has a number 2 by it is pronounced wind. To go along a twisty path to wrap something around another object. So those obviously have different pronunciations and different definitions, but what is the thing that makes it a homograph? You remember from our definition? The way it's spelled. Homographs will be spelled the exact same. Although they might be pronounced differently, they might mean different things. That's what we have to keep in mind, and that's why the dictionary is so important. Another thing that we're going to practice today is looking at our context clues. Now in 5th grade, we already know what context clues are and how to find context clues, but we're going to practice using context clues and figuring out the pronunciations and definitions of some different homographs. That's what we're going to practice today. So what I want you to do in order to practice, I want you to pause this video and I want you to look at the guided practice section of page 11 of your iReady packet. I want you to either work on it independently or maybe find a brother or sister or a mom or dad, a parent, somebody to maybe help you through this paragraph. But I want you to pause this video and try it on your own at home, and then we're going to go over the answers, okay? Gotcha. All right, so you should have, it says, read the passage, find each underlined homograph in a dictionary. Figure out how to pronounce it, and then write a short definition above each word. So you should have a way to pronounce it and a small definition to help you out as you read the paragraph. So we're going to look really quick. We're going to look at what I did, and as we're going along, I want you to check it. So the first one says, the village was a perfect place to loaf for a few hours. Now I wrote L and then O with the line above it to show that it's a tall or a long O. F, loaf. That's the pronunciation. And then I drew a little man, and he's got some snore Z's above his head to show that he is loafing. He's lazy or he's relaxing. I bought a fresh loaf of bread at a bakery near the beach. So L-O with the line above it to show that that is long O. F, loaf, that's how you pronounce it. And then I drew a little picture of bread to remind me that that is bread. A dove was eating crumbs on the sidewalk. That is pronounced dove, and I drew a little bird. Now the rest of the paragraph says, across the street, a seagull dove for food, so that's the past tense of dive, dove for food, as I watched. Then I bought a present, or a gift, for my mom at a store. I planned to present or present it to her tonight at dinner. An old wound in my leg began to ache. Now that wound is like an injury. So I wound my way slowly along the streets. Now that wound is to go kind of topsy-turvy or to not go in a straight line. So that was our practice for identifying homographs, and I hope that you got something out of that. The next thing that we're going to do is go to page 12 of your iReady packet. And I want you to, once again, I want you to press pause on the video, and on your own, I want you to follow the directions. It says choose the correct meaning of the underlined word as it is used in the sentence. So it gives you a sentence. I want you to look at some context clues. I want you to read all of the definitions listed, and I want you to choose the best answer based on the different definitions and your context clues. Okay, so pause this video and do that before you press play. All right, now you should be ready to look at the answers with me. So here's our board. If you can see those sentences. The first one says, I wandered down to the port. So port is our underlined sentence. And our definitions are port, a harbor, port, the left of a ship, port, a valve or opening that lets liquid out, or port, a person's manner or bearing. So what are some of our context clues? I always like to find the subject and the verb no matter what. So I wandered. If somebody's wandering, what are they doing? They're walking, right? Well, let's see what we can walk on. We can walk on a harbor. We can walk to the left on a ship. We can't walk on a valve. We can't walk on a person's manner, can we? So it has to be either A or B. Now let's look again. Let's read our sentence. I wandered down to the port. to watch cargoes being unloaded from boats. So what are they doing? They wandered so that they can watch cargoes being unloaded from boats. So if they're watching the boats, are they on a boat? My guess would be no. I would say they wandered on the harbor. That's the definition that I'm going to do. So that would be A. So I'm going to mark A. Number 2, your ship looks sound, I said to a fisherman. Let's read our definitions. A noise, in good shape, a long, wide body of water to measure how deep water is. So let's read our sentence one more time and find our subject and verb. We have some quotations. So in our quotations, that would be the ship looks outside, I said. Now since our underlined word is inside the quotations, let's look at that first. Your ship looks sound. If it looks, are we talking about a noise? I don't think so. So let's mark out A. B, in good shape. C, a long, wide body of water. Are we talking about the water or are we talking about the ship? We're talking about the ship. So let's mark out C. D, to measure how deep water is. Once again, we're talking about the ship, right? So we can also mark D out of the equation. So that would be B, in good shape. He's saying your ship looks like it's in good shape. For the sake of time, I'm just going to read 3 through 5 off to you. It says, it has to be, he said, tomorrow we're bound for the fishing lanes. Now, the correct answer to that one would be D. And we know that because they're talking about going somewhere. They're talking about going to the fishing lanes. So, on the way to a particular place. D is the correct answer. 4, high winds and fierce storms are sure to batter us on the open seas, he continued. The correct answer to that one would be to hit or pound. And the reason why we know that is because he talks about high winds and fierce storms. They're out in the open seas. They're on their ship. So we can tell by that there's going to be some danger. There might be some hitting and pounding of their ship. Number 5 is, fortunately, our bow is sturdy and true. And if you read through all of those, using the context clues that all of these are talking about ships, we can rule out D, a weapon for shooting arrows. We're not talking about that type of bow. We're talking about a bow. And since we have been talking about ships, the best answer would be C, the front of a ship's hull. So to reiterate a little bit about what we've talked about, what we've learned today, what we've reinforced, we've talked about homographs. We've talked about how they might have the same spelling but different pronunciations and different meanings, right? You can always use the dictionary and you can always use your context clues when picking out a homograph.